You know how sometimes life just hits you like a freight train when you least expect it? Well, imagine being the youngest billionaire on Forbes' list, standing in front of every major news camera in the world, about to announce the biggest IPO in tech history, and then 4 kids show up claiming you're their dad. Yeah, that's exactly what happened to Ethan Cross on what was supposed to be the best day of his life. I'm telling you this story because it's wild. It's crazy, and honestly, if someone doesn't share what really went down that day, people will never believe it. So hit that like button if you want to hear about billionaires, genius kids, and more drama than a reality TV show, because this gets intense. The morning started perfect. I mean, picture perfect. Ethan Cross, 32 years old, standing at the podium of the New York Stock Exchange, wearing his signature black suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. Behind him, the massive Cross Technologies logo gleamed on every screen. Cameras flashed like lightning as reporters from Bloomberg, CNBC, and every major financial network crowded the trading floor. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ethan's voice boomed. Through the speakers, that confident tech CEO voice that made investors throw money at anything he touched. Today marks a new chapter, not just for Cross Technologies, but for the future of artificial intelligence and human innovation. The crowd was eating it up. Catherine Cross, his mother, stood in the VIP section wearing pearls that could fund a small country, nodding with that satisfied smile wealthy mothers get when their sons are about to make them even wealthier. Next to her, Madison Parker adjusted her designer dress and flashed her engagement ring at every camera that came near. Madison had been planning this moment for months, knowing that after the IPO announcement, she and Ethan would officially announce their engagement to the press. Cross Technologies is proud to announce our initial public offering of $50 billion. Ethan continued, his voice steady and commanding. This isn't just about building technology. This is about building the future. The applause was thunderous. Stock traders on the floor started cheering. Madison beamed like she just won the lottery, which honestly, she kind of had. But you know what they say about the best laid plans. That's when everything went sideways. The first sign something was wrong came when the main presentation screen flickered. Just for a second. Ethan paused, glanced back at the screen, then continued with his practiced smile. As we move forward into this new era of technological advancement. Boom, every screen in the building lit up with bright green text that looked like something out of a hacker movie. "Papa, you're busted." The entire trading floor went dead. Silent. Ethan's confident smile vanished like someone had just slapped him. Security guards started talking rapidly into their earpieces, their heads swiveling around the room like they were looking for terrorists. Then came the voices. 4 little voices cutting through the silence like knives through butter. "Hi, Daddy. Surprise. Did you miss us? We found you." Every camera in the place swung around to capture 4 kids standing at the edge of the VIP section. And let me tell you, these weren't just any kids. They looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog for gifted children's academies. The oldest boy, maybe 10 years old, was holding what looked like a homemade tablet. A girl with pigtails was clutching a notebook covered in mathematical equations. 2 other kids stood beside them, grinning like they just pulled off the prank of the century. Catherine Cross went white as a sheet. Madison Parker's mouth dropped open so wide you could have parked a car in it, and Ethan just stood there frozen like someone had hit his pause button. "Security!" Madison shrieked, pointing at the kids like they were carrying weapons. "Get them out of here!" But before security could move, the boy with the tablet stepped forward and did something that made every tech reporter in the building lose their minds. He started reciting details about Ethan's life that no random kid should. "No. Papa, remember when you had that scar on your left shoulder from falling off your bike when you were 8? And how you always eat pizza backwards, starting with the crust? Oh, and that time you cried watching Toy Story 3 when Andy gave away his toys?" The cameras went crazy. Reporters started shouting questions. The little girl with the math notebook chimed in. Daddy, your social security number ends in 4729, and your first pet was a golden retriever named Einstein, who died when you were 12. Ethan's face went from pale to red to something that might have been green. These kids knew things about him that even Madison didn't know. Personal things, family things. Things that proved they weren't just random children pulling a publicity stunt. How do they know that? Catherine whispered, grabbing Madison's arm. How could they possibly know that? Meanwhile, the third kid, a boy who couldn't have been older than 8, was calmly explaining to a CNN reporter. We calculated the probability of Papa recognizing us at 97.3%, accounting for variables including stress levels, public pressure, and his documented tendency to avoid emotional confrontation. The fourth child, a girl who looked like she spoke 5 languages before breakfast, was chatting with a French reporter in perfect French, then switched to Spanish with a Univision journalist, then started answering questions in what sounded like Mandarin. The trading floor had turned into complete chaos. Stock prices for Cross Technology started fluctuating wildly as traders tried to figure out what was happening. Some news outlets were calling it a publicity stunt. Others were wondering if this was some kind of corporate sabotage. But anyone looking at Ethan's face could see this wasn't planned. Mr. Cross, a Bloomberg reporter, shouted over the noise. Can you comment on these children's claims? Ethan looked like a deer caught in headlights. His perfectly planned IPO announcement had turned into a circus, and he was the main attraction whether he liked it or not. There must be some mistake, he managed to say into the microphone, but his voice cracked just enough that everyone noticed. That's when Mason, the boy with the tablet, decided to really bring down the house. Papa, if you don't believe us, we can prove it right now. I've got access to your personal cloud storage, your email accounts, and that private folder where you keep all your college photos. Should I put those up on the big screen too? The entire room went dead silent again. Because everyone there knew that if some kid could hack into Ethan Cross's personal files during a live broadcast at the New York Stock Exchange, either this was the most sophisticated security breach in history, or these kids were telling the truth about being his family. Catherine Cross pushed through the crowd toward the children, her face a mixture of fury and panic. Security! I want these children removed immediately. But Sophia, the girl with the math notebook, looked up at her with these big innocent eyes and said, Grandma Catherine, why are you being so mean? We just wanted to surprise Papa at his big day, Grandma Catherine. The girl had called her Grandma Catherine. Madison Parker was practically hyperventilating at this point. This is impossible, she kept saying to anyone who would listen. Ethan doesn't have children. We're getting married next month. He would have told me if he had children. Lucas, the 8-year-old strategist, looked at Madison with the kind of calculating stare that would have made a poker player nervous. Are you Papa's girlfriend? Mama said Papa might have a girlfriend, but she said not to worry because girlfriends aren't forever, but family is. The reporter from CNN leaned down to Lucas. Son, where is your mama? Zoe, the linguistic genius, answered in perfect English with just a hint of a New York accent. Mama's at work. She's the executive assistant at Cross Technologies. She doesn't know we're here. We wanted to surprise both Mama and Papa. Executive assistant at Cross Technologies. That detail hit Ethan like a physical blow. He was thinking of every woman who worked in his building, trying to figure out which one could possibly be connected to these incredibly intelligent, obviously well-educated children who somehow knew details about his life that he'd never shared with anyone. The NYSE security team was having a conference near the main desk, clearly trying to figure out how to handle a situation that had never been covered in any of their training manuals. Do you arrest children for disrupting a financial announcement? Do you treat this as a security breach, a family matter, a publicity stunt gone wrong? Madison grabbed Ethan's arm and hissed in his ear, Do something. This is ruining everything. But Ethan was staring at the 4 kids, really looking at them for the first time. Mason had his curly hair, the same unruly curls that Ethan spent a fortune every month trying to keep neat. Sophia had his green eyes, the same unusual shade that people always commented on. Lucas had the same stubborn chin that Ethan's father always said came from the Cross family line. And Zoe had this way of tilting her head when she was thinking that reminded him of someone. Someone he couldn't quite place but felt familiar. "Papa," Mason said, his voice cutting through all the chaos and noise. "We know you're scared. Mama told us you might be scared when you found out about us. But we've been waiting so long to meet you, and we're really, really smart, so we figured out how to find you ourselves." "We won't be any trouble," Sophia added, hugging her math notebook tighter. "We can help with your company. I've already identified 17 areas where cross technologies could improve profit margins. And I speak 8 languages," Zoe chimed in, "so I can help with international business. Plus, I can beat anyone at chess and strategic planning," Lucas said with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a game in his life. The cameras were capturing every word, every expression, every moment of what was rapidly becoming the most watched financial news event of the decade. Social media was exploding. #CrossKids was trending worldwide. Stock traders were placing bets on whether Cross Technology stock would crash or soar based on this family drama. That's when Emma Rodriguez realized what was happening. She was sitting in her small office on the 42nd floor of the Cross Technologies building, watching the IPO announcement on her computer like everyone else in the company, when she saw 4 familiar faces on her screen. "Oh no," she whispered, her coffee mug slipping from her hands and shattering on the floor. "Oh no, oh no." Emma grabbed her phone and started dialing frantically, but she already knew it was too late. The kids had done exactly what she'd been terrified they would do ever since they'd figured out that their mysterious father was actually the CEO of the company where their mama worked. She'd spent 6 years keeping this secret. 6 years raising 4 of the most brilliant children on the planet while working 16-hour days to keep them fed, clothed, and educated. 6 years telling them that their father was someone who couldn't be part of their lives right now. But maybe someday. She never imagined that someday would come in the form of her children, hacking into the New York Stock Exchange and announcing themselves to the world during a live broadcast. Emma was already running for the elevator, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She had to get to the kids before this got any worse. She had to explain everything to Ethan before he figured out the truth on his own. She had to somehow fix this disaster before it destroyed everything she built for her family. But as she watched the elevator numbers slowly climbing down to her floor, Emma realized something that made her stomach drop even further. It was already too late to fix anything, because at that exact moment, 30 floors below and 10 miles away, Ethan Cross was looking at 4 children who had just turned his entire world upside down. And he was starting to remember a night 6 years ago that he'd tried very hard to forget. A night with a brilliant woman who disappeared the next morning, leaving nothing but a note with $500 and an apology for complications. A night that might have just caught up with him in the most public way possible. The Bloomberg reporter stepped closer to Ethan, her camera crew following. "Mr. Cross, do you have any comment on these children's claims about their parentage?" Ethan looked at the 4 kids, then at Madison's horrified face, then at his mother's expression of barely controlled panic, then back at the kids. Mason stepped forward and held up his tablet. "Papa, if you want proof, we brought our own DNA test results. We're not just smart kids, we're your smart kids." And that's when Ethan Cross, the youngest billionaire in America, the man who had built a technology empire and was about to make the biggest public offering in Wall Street history, did something that surprised everyone in the room, including himself. He smiled. Not a polite CEO smile or a camera-ready smile, but a real smile. The kind of smile that happens when someone realizes their life just got infinitely more complicated and somehow infinitely better at the same time. "Well," he said into the microphone, his voice carrying across the entire trading floor. "This is definitely not how I plan to announce my family to the world." The cameras went crazy. Madison Parker looked like she was about to faint. "Catherine." Cross was frantically whispering to someone on her phone. And four genius children stood there grinning like they just won the lottery dot because in a way, they had. They just found their dad. And their dad, whether he was ready for it or not, had just found them. But the story was just getting started. Because while Ethan was having his world turned upside down at the NYSE, Emma Rodriguez was racing through Manhattan traffic in a taxi, trying to figure out how to explain 6 years of secrets to the man she'd never forgotten and never contacted. Emma stared out the taxi window at the crowds of people lining up outside the NYSE building. News vans were everywhere. Reporters were doing live broadcasts from every available corner. The whole area looked like a movie set for a disaster film. "Can't get any closer, lady," the taxi driver said, pulling over 3 blocks away. Police got the whole area cordoned off. Emma threw money at the driver and started running. She was still wearing her work clothes, a simple gray dress and flats that she bought at Target, because designer clothes weren't exactly in the budget when you were raising 4 children on an assistant salary. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wasn't wearing any makeup because she'd been planning to spend the day filing reports, not explaining to a billionaire why she'd hidden his children from him for 6 years. As she pushed through the crowds of reporters and onlookers, Emma's mind was racing through everything that had led to this moment. 6 years ago, she'd been Emma Rodriguez, recent MIT graduate with a double major in computer science and mathematics, working as a consultant at a tech conference in San Francisco. She'd been brilliant, ambitious, and absolutely determined to make her mark in the tech world. She'd also been completely broke. The consulting job barely paid enough to cover her student loans, let alone her tiny apartment or her tendency to survive on ramen noodles and coffee. When she'd been invited to an exclusive after-party for the conference's speakers, she'd gone mainly because they promised free food and the chance to network with people who might actually hire her. That's where she met Ethan. Not Ethan Cross. Billionaire CEO, just Ethan, a guy about her age who was surprisingly easy to talk to and who seemed genuinely interested in her ideas about artificial intelligence and machine learning. They'd spent hours talking about everything from programming languages to their favorite sci-fi movies. He'd been funny, smart, and he'd listened to her like her opinions actually mattered. Emma had felt like Cinderella at the ball, except instead of a prince, she'd found someone who understood why she got excited about recursive algorithms. One thing had led to another, and they'd ended up in his hotel room. It had been magical and perfect and everything Emma had thought she was too practical to believe in, right up until she woke up the next morning and realized exactly who she'd spent the night with. The business cards on his nightstand, the prototype, tech devices scattered around the room, the phone that had been buzzing all night with calls from investors and board members. Ethan Cross. The Ethan Cross, the boy genius who dropped out of Stanford to start Cross Technologies, the youngest person ever featured on the cover of Fortune magazine, the man who was already worth billions and was being called the next Steve Jobs. Emma had panicked. She'd left money on the nightstand, all the cash she had, $500. That was supposed to last her the rest of the month, along with a note apologizing for complications. Then she'd grab her clothes and run out of there like the building was on fire. She'd never contacted him. She'd never tried to reach out. When she found out she was pregnant a month later, she'd made the decision to handle it on her own. What was she supposed to do? Call up one of the most powerful men in America and say, "Hey, remember that random girl from the conference? Well, surprise, you're going to be a father." But it hadn't been just one baby. It had been 4. Emma pushed through another crowd of reporters, getting closer to the NYC building. She could see police barriers and security guards everywhere. Getting inside was going to be almost impossible. Meanwhile, inside the building, Ethan was having the strangest conversation of his life. "Mr. Cross," the reporter from CNBC was saying, Are you confirming that these children are your biological offspring? I'm not confirming anything yet, Ethan said carefully, but I'm definitely not denying the possibility. Madison grabbed his arm again. Ethan, you can't be serious. These children are obviously part of some elaborate scam. Someone is using them to disrupt the IPO. But Mason overheard her and stepped forward with his tablet. Lady, we're not scamming anyone. Want to see the financial projections we did for Cross Technologies? We found $14 billion worth of inefficiencies in your supply chain. Management. Sophia nodded eagerly. And we identified the optimal market timing for the IPO based on current economic indicators, seasonal trading patterns, and projected competitor announcements. Today actually is the perfect day for Papa's big announcement. Lucas looked at Madison with that calculating stare again. Also, we ran a probability analysis on Papa's current relationship status and determined that there's only a 23% chance his girlfriend will still be around after today. Zoe added cheerfully. That's because Mama always said Papa would eventually realize he wants a family more than he wants someone who only likes him for his money. Madison's face went from red to purple. How dare you, ma'am? Interrupted a security guard. We need to clear this area. The children need to be questioned, and Mr. Cross needs to know. Ethan's voice cut through the chaos with an authority that made everyone stop talking. Nobody questions these children without their mother present. Where is their mother? Mama's at work, Zoe said. She's probably watching this on TV right now. She's probably also freaking out because we weren't supposed to come here without telling her. And where does Mama work? Ethan asked, though he was starting to have a sinking suspicion he already knew the answer. Cross Technologies, 42nd floor, Mason replied. She's executive assistant, Emma Rodriguez. She's been working there for 3 years, but you've never really noticed her because she's really good at staying invisible. Emma Rodriguez. The name hit Ethan like a physical blow. He knew that name. He'd signed her paychecks. He'd seen her in meetings, always sitting quietly in the corner, taking notes, never speaking, unless someone asked her a direct question. Emma Rodriguez, who always wore simple clothes and kept her hair pulled back and never looked directly at him during meetings. Emma Rodriguez, who was brilliant enough to handle the most complex scheduling and project management tasks, but somehow content to work as an assistant. Emma Rodriguez, who had somehow been hiding in plain sight for 3 years while raising his children. Get Emma Rodriguez on the phone, Ethan told his assistant, who was somewhere in the crowd of executives and reporters. Now. But at that moment, Emma was pushing past the police barriers outside the building, using the MIT alumni card in her wallet to convince a young security guard that she was a visiting consultant who needed to get inside immediately. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but no one gets in without proper clearance, the guard was saying. Those are my children in there, Emma said, pointing at the building. Those 4 kids who just crashed the IPO announcement. They're mine. And if I don't get in there, right now, this situation is going to get a lot worse for everyone involved. The guard looked skeptical until his radio crackled with a message. All security personnel, be on the lookout for Emma Rodriguez, female, approximately 28 years old, employee of Cross Technologies. Mr. Cross wants to see her immediately. The guard looked at Emma's ID badge, then at her face, then back at his radio. Ma'am, he said, stepping aside. You better get in there fast. Emma ran through the NYSE building, past reporters and cameras and security personnel following the sounds of chaos and children's voices until she reached the trading floor. And there, in the middle of the biggest financial circus in recent memory, she saw them, her 4 brilliant, impossible, wonderful children, standing next to the man she'd been in love with for 6 years and had been too afraid to contact. Ethan saw her at the same moment. Their eyes met across the crowded trading floor, and suddenly it was like everyone else in the room disappeared. She looked exactly the same as she had 6 years ago, except for the tired lines around her eyes and the way she carried herself like someone who'd been fighting the world alone for too long. "Mama!" Zoe spotted her first and started running toward her, with the other three kids right behind her. Emma caught them in a group hug, holding them tight, like she was afraid they might disappear. "What did you four do?" she whispered. "We found Papa," Mason said proudly, "just like we planned. We calculated the optimal timing and everything," Sophia added. "And we proved we're really smart, so he'll want to keep us," Lucas said. "Are you mad at us, Mama?" Zoe asked, looking up at Emma with worried eyes. Emma looked over their heads at Ethan, who was walking toward them with an expression she couldn't read. "No, baby," she said softly. "I'm not mad. I'm just scared, Miss Rodriguez." Ethan's voice was carefully controlled, but Emma could hear something underneath it. Hurt, maybe, or anger, possibly both. "Mr. Cross," Emma replied, standing up slowly. "I can explain. Can you?" Ethan asked. "Because I'm trying to understand how my children have been working in my building for 3 years, and I never knew they existed." The cameras and reporters were capturing every word, but Emma barely noticed them. All she could see was Ethan's face and the 4 children standing between them like a bridge across 6 years of silence. "It's complicated," Emma said, which was the understatement of the century. "I'm sure it is," Ethan replied. "But we're going to uncomplicate it, right now." Before Emma could respond, Madison Parker pushed through the crowd with the kind of determination that had made her one of the most feared socialites in Manhattan. "Ethan, darling," Madison said, her voice artificially sweet. "Clearly this woman has been planning this for months. It's obviously an elaborate gold-digging scheme timed to coincide with the IPO." Emma felt her face flush red. After 6 years of working multiple jobs, scraping together money for rent and groceries and school supplies, after nights spent helping with homework and weekends spent at science museums and libraries, the accusation hit her like a slap. "I'm not a gold digger," Emma said quietly, but her voice carried across the trading floor. "I've been supporting my children on my own for 6 years. I never asked Mr. Cross for anything." "Then why reveal yourself now?" Madison pressed. "Why wait until today, the biggest day of Ethan's career?" Mason stepped between his mother and Madison, with the kind of protective instinct that made Emma's heart break a little. "Lady, Mama didn't reveal anything. We did. Mama doesn't even know we figured out who Papa is." "That's right," Sophia said, adjusting her glasses. "We've been researching Papa's identity for 8 months. Mama thinks we've been doing extra credit projects for school." Lucas nodded. "We use facial recognition software, genetic probability analysis, and cross-reference biographical data from public records and news articles. Plus," Zoe added in perfect Spanish for the benefit of the Univision reporter, then switched back to English. "We hacked into Mama's old email accounts and found the hotel receipt from San Francisco." Emma closed her eyes. Of course they had. Her children were terrifyingly smart and apparently much better at keeping secrets than she was. "The point is," Mason continued, looking at Madison with the kind of serious expression that belonged on a Supreme Court justice, not a 10-year-old, "Mama didn't plan this. We did. Because we wanted to meet our Papa, and we got tired of waiting for adults to figure out what kids already knew." Catherine Cross, who had been quietly making phone calls in the corner, suddenly appeared at Ethan's side. "Ethan, dear, we need to handle this privately. The press is having a field day." She was right. Emma could see reporters frantically typing on their phones, live streaming the entire encounter. Social media was probably exploding. The Cross Technology stock ticker in the corner of every financial news screen was fluctuating wildly. "Mrs. Cross is right," Emma said, looking directly at Ethan. "This isn't the place for this conversation. I'll take the children home, and we can discuss this privately later." "No," Ethan's voice was firm. "Nobody's going anywhere until I understand what's been happening." "Papa," Sophia said softly, tugging on Ethan's sleeve. Mama's right. There are too many people here, and some of them have mean faces. Emma looked down at her daughter, brilliant Sophia, who could solve calculus problems but was still just a little girl who got scared in crowds and made a decision. "Kids, go wait by the security desk," Emma said. "I need to talk to your father." "But Mama," Zoe started to protest. "Now," Emma said in her mom voice, the one that meant business. The children reluctantly walked away, but Emma noticed they positioned themselves where they could still hear everything. Emma turned to face Ethan, aware that every word she was about to say will be broadcast to millions of people and probably analyzed by financial experts and family court judges for years to come. 6 years ago in San Francisco, I was a broke MIT graduate working as a consultant, Emma began. I met someone at a conference after party. We talked for hours. We had a connection. We spent the night together. She paused, looking directly into Ethan's eyes. I woke up the next morning and realized I'd slept with one of the most powerful men in America. I panicked. I left money in a note and disappeared because I thought you'd assume I was trying to trap you. "So you just vanished?" Ethan asked. No phone call. No explanation. What was I supposed to say? Emma's voice cracked slightly. "Hi, this is the random girl from the conference. Hope you don't mind that I invaded your privacy and then ran away like a coward?" Madison snorted. "How convenient." The poor girl falls for the billionaire's charm and then disappears mysteriously. Emma turned to Madison with a look that could have melted steel. "When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't contact him because I didn't want him to think I was after his money. When I found out I was having quadruplets, I knew I definitely couldn't contact him because who would believe that story?" "Quadruplets?" Catherine Cross's voice came out as a squeak. "4 babies," Emma confirmed. "Mason, Sophia, Lucas, and Zoe. Born 10 weeks premature after the most difficult pregnancy you can imagine. I was on bed rest for 3 months, lost my consulting job, spent my entire savings on medical bills, and ended up raising 4 gifted children while working whatever jobs I could find. The trading floor had gone completely silent. Even the reporters seemed stunned by the raw honesty in Emma's voice. I moved to New York when the children were 2 because there were better educational opportunities here. I applied for a job at Cross Technologies because it had excellent benefits and flexible hours, not because I was trying to get close to Mr. Cross. In 3 years of working there, I've been in the same room with him maybe 6 times, and he's never spoken directly to me." Ethan was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. "You've been there for 3 years. 3 years, Emma. Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was terrified," Emma admitted. "I was terrified you'd take them away from me. I was terrified you'd think I was lying. I was terrified you want nothing to do with them. I was terrified of a lot of things, but mostly I was terrified of disrupting their lives when they were finally stable and happy. And you thought I wouldn't want to know my own children?" Ethan's voice was quiet, but Emma could hear the hurt underneath it. "I thought you had your own life," Emma said. "A life that probably didn't include 4 kids. With a woman you barely knew." Madison stepped forward again. "This is all very touching, but where's the proof? Anyone can claim their children belong to a billionaire. Where's the DNA test? Where's the documentation?" Mason apparently decided he'd heard enough because he marched back over with his tablet. "Lady, do you want proof? We've got proof." He tapped the screen a few times, and suddenly the main display screen in the trading room lit up with what looked like a scientific presentation. "We ran our own DNA analysis using hair samples we collected," Mason announced like he was presenting a doctoral thesis. "We compared genetic markers using publicly available information about Papa's family medical history, which we cross-referenced with our own health records." Sophia joined him, pulling out her notebook. "We also analyzed facial structure, blood, type compatibility, and genetic trait inheritance patterns. The probability of coincidental matches across all variables is less than 0.001%. Lucas stepped up to the microphone that the reporters had been using. Additionally, we've documented behavioral and intellectual traits that align with known cross-family characteristics, including high IQ scores, specific learning patterns, and genetic predispositions to certain allergies and medical conditions. Zoe finished the presentation by switching to what sounded like medical terminology, explaining genetic markers and hereditary traits in language that made several of the reporters start frantically Googling scientific terms. The entire room stared at four children who had just delivered a more thorough and convincing argument than most professional legal teams could have prepared. Holy shit, someone whispered, and Emma was pretty sure it was one of the NYSE officials. Ethan looked at the presentation, then at the children, then at Emma. How old are they again? 10, 9, 8, and 8, Emma said. Mason's the oldest, then Sophia, then Lucas and Zoe are twins. And they just performed their own paternity test using genetic analysis that would impress a team of scientists? They're gifted, Emma said, which was like saying the ocean was damp. Catherine Cross had been studying the children with a strange expression on her face. Suddenly, she walked over to Mason and stared at his hair, then his eyes, then his profile. Robert, she called to her husband, who had been standing in the background looking stunned. Come look at this child. Robert Cross approached and studied Mason's face. His expression slowly changed from confusion to amazement. Good Lord, he whispered. He looks exactly like Ethan did at that age. Exactly like him. Catherine nodded slowly. The curly hair, the green eyes, that stubborn chin. And look at how he stands. That's the cross posture right there. She turned to Sophia. And she has your mother's bone structure, Ethan. Your grandmother had that same delicate face and those same intelligent eyes. Emma watched as Ethan's parents examined her children like they were looking at long-lost family photographs. She saw recognition dawning in their faces, the kind of recognition that went deeper than logic or DNA tests. These are our grandchildren, Catherine said softly. I don't need a DNA test to see that. These are definitely our grandchildren. Madison Parker was looking around desperately, like she was trying to figure out how to salvage a situation that was spiraling completely out of her control. Even if they are related, Madison said, her voice getting higher, that doesn't change anything. Ethan and I are engaged. We have a life planned together. 4 random children can't just show up and disrupt everything. That's when Zoe looked up at Madison with those big innocent eyes and said something that made Emma want to disappear into the floor. But you're not Mama, Zoe said matter-of-factly. Papa belongs with Mama. We calculate the emotional compatibility factors. And Papa and Mama have a 94.7% harmony rating, while Papa and you only have a 23.1% harmony rating. Plus, Mason added helpfully, Mama makes Papa smile for real, not just a fake camera smile. We watch videos of him online, and he only smiles. For real when he's talking about artificial intelligence, quantum computing, or when he was looking at Mama during those meetings when he thought nobody was watching. Emma felt her face turn bright red. Mason, that's enough. But it's true, Mama, Sophia said. We've been observing Papa for months. He looks sad most of the time, except when he's working on technology problems or when he sees you. Lucas nodded sagely. Our analysis indicates that Papa has been experiencing what psychologists call emotional displacement, replacing genuine emotional connections with professional achievements and social obligations. Emma wanted to crawl under the nearest desk and hide forever. Kids, please stop psychoanalyzing your father in front of the entire financial world. But Ethan was staring at the children with something that might have been wonder. You've been watching me? Research, Mason said proudly. We needed to determine if Papa was a good person before we introduced ourselves. We didn't want Mama to get hurt if you turned out to be mean. And what did you conclude? Ethan asked, genuinely curious. Sophia adjusted her glasses and looked at Ethan with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. We concluded that Papa is fundamentally good, but emotionally suppressed due to childhood trauma related to parental expectations and social pressures inherent in wealth-based family structures. Emma buried her face in her hands. Her 8-year-old daughter had just psychoanalyzed a billionaire CEO in front of live television cameras. Also, Lucas added, you give 12.3% of your net worth to charity annually, which is statistically generous compared to other billionaires. And you've never fired anyone without cause, which indicates strong moral principles. Plus, you always say please and thank you to your assistants, Zoe chimed in, even when you think nobody's listening. The reporters were frantically scribbling. Notes: this was turning into the most unusual family reunion in financial history. Madison grabbed Ethan's arm with desperation that was becoming painful to watch. Ethan, you can't seriously be considering this. These children are clearly coached. Someone has been training them to... Lady, Mason interrupted. Nobody coached. U.S., we're just smart. Want me to prove it? What's 847 times 293? Madison stared at him blankly. 248,171, Sophia answered before anyone could blink. In base 16, that's 3C8AB, Lucas added casually. And in binary, it's 11,111,000.010111100110011 file 1. Zoe finished. The Bloomberg reporter leaned toward her cameraman. Are you getting this? 4 kids just did advanced mathematics in their heads while standing in the middle of the NYSE. Ethan looked at Emma with an expression that was part amazement, part accusation. How long have they been like this? Always, Emma said quietly. Mason was reading at 18 months. Sophia was doing algebra at 4. The twins taught themselves Mandarin and French by watching YouTube videos when they were 5. And you've been raising them alone? Catherine Cross asked, her voice softer now. Emma nodded. I work full-time. They attend a public school with a gifted program, and we make it work. They help each other with homework, and I help with everything else. Public school? Catherine looked horrified. These children should be at Manhattan Prep Academy or Dalton. They should have private tutors. And we can't afford private school, Emma said firmly. And honestly, they do fine wherever they are. They adapt. Robert Cross was still staring at the children like he was seeing ghosts. Ethan, I need to tell you something. When you were their age, your IQ test results were so high the school psychologists thought there was an error. These children, they're just like you were. Except we're not lonely, Mason said matter-of-factly. We have each other and Mama, so we're not sad like Papa was when he was little. The entire trading floor went silent. Emma felt her heart break a little, watching Ethan's face as her son's words hit him. How did you know I was lonely? Ethan asked quietly. We read your old interviews, Sophia explained. You talked about being too smart for kids your age and too young for adults. That's why we wanted to meet you. We thought maybe you'd understand us better than other grown-ups do. Emma watched Ethan's expression change as he looked at his children, really looked at them, and saw not just brilliant little beings, but brilliant little beings who had grown up with something he'd never had, each other. Mr. Cross, a reporter, called out, What's your official statement regarding these children? Ethan glanced at the cameras, then at Madison's increasingly panicked face, then at his parents, and finally at Emma and the 4 children who had just turned his world upside down. My official statement, Ethan said, his voice carrying across the trading floor, is that some things are more important than IPOs. He walked over to Emma and the children, ignoring the flashing cameras, and shouted questions. We need to talk, he said to Emma. All of us, privately. Ethan, you can't just leave, Madison protested. The investors, the media, our engagement announcement. Ethan turned to look at Madison, and Emma saw something in his expression that made her stomach flutter with hope and terror at the same time. "Madison," Ethan said carefully, "I think we need to have a different conversation. A private one." Madison's face went white. "Ethan, you can't be serious. You can't throw away everything we planned for some woman you barely know and 4 children who might not even be yours." "I might not know Emma well," Ethan said, "but I know enough. And these children ... Madison, look at them. Really look at them." He gestured to Mason, who was quietly hacking into the NYSE's display system to show a live graph across technology's stock price. To Sophia, who was explaining market volatility to a Wall Street Journal reporter. To Lucas, who was calmly giving strategic advice to a CNBC anchor about how to handle breaking news coverage. To Zoe, who was translating the entire conversation for international reporters in 4 different languages. "These aren't just any children," Ethan continued. "These are extraordinary children who've been growing up without their father because I didn't know they existed. That ends today." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She'd been so afraid that Ethan would reject the children, or see them as a burden, or try to take them away from her. She'd never imagined he would claim them so completely, so publicly, so immediately. "Papa," Zoe said softly, tugging on Ethan's sleeve, "are you mad at Mama for not telling you about us?" Ethan looked down at his daughter, then over at Emma. "I'm not mad, sweetheart. I'm confused and hurt and overwhelmed, but I'm not mad. Sometimes grown-ups make decisions that seem wrong but feel right at the time." "Mama was protecting us," Lucas said with his usual strategic thinking. "She calculated that revealing our existence might result in legal battles or custody disputes that could disrupt our educational development and emotional stability. Plus," Mason added, "Mama didn't know if Papa would want kids who were smarter than most adults. Some people get intimidated by intelligence. Emma wanted to tell her children to stop being so wise, but Ethan was looking at them with something that looked like pride mixed with wonder." "I would never be intimidated by intelligence," Ethan said. "Intelligence is what I value most in the world." "We know," Sophia said simply. "That's why we knew you'd want us once you met us." The confidence in her voice, the absolute certainty that their father would love them once he knew them, made Emma's heart ache. Her children had never doubted they were worth loving. They'd just been waiting for the right moment to prove it. "Mr. Cross," a security guard approached carefully, "the building needs to be cleared. The crowds outside are getting larger, and we have safety concerns." Ethan nodded. "We're leaving. All of us." He turned to Emma. "My car is outside. We're going somewhere we can talk without cameras." Emma hesitated. Once she got in that car, there would be no going back to her quiet life of invisibility. Everything would change. "Mama," Zoe said, taking her hand, "it's okay. We calculated the probability of Papa being nice to us, remember? It was 97.3%. What about the other 2.7%? Emma asked. Mason grinned. "That's the probability he'll be so happy he'll cry, which isn't actually a bad thing." Emma looked at Ethan, who was waiting patiently for her decision. Behind him, Madison was frantically arguing with Captain Cross about something. Reporters were shouting questions. The NYSE officials were clearly desperate to restore order, but in the middle of all that chaos, there was Ethan, looking at her and the children like they were the most important thing in the world. "Okay," Emma said. "Let's go." The ride to Ethan's penthouse was awkward in the way that only life-changing conversations can be. Emma sat in the back of the luxury sedan with Zoe and Sophia while Mason and Lucas peppered Ethan with questions about the car's technology, the stock market, and whether they could see his office. "Papa," Mason said, examining the tablet built into the car's armrest, "your security system has some vulnerabilities in the secondary firewall protocols. You hacked my car?" Ethan asked, sounding more impressed than concerned. "Just a little," Mason said innocently. "Don't worry, I didn't touch anything important. I just wanted to see how it worked. Emma closed her eyes. Mason, you can't hack people's property. But Mama, Papa doesn't mind. Do you, Papa? Ethan glanced back at them through the rearview mirror. Actually, I'm curious about these vulnerabilities you mentioned. Ethan, Emma said, please don't. Encourage him. Why not? If he can find security flaws, I want to know about them. Mason, can you show me what you found? For the next 10 minutes, Emma listened to her 10-year-old son explain cybersecurity to a billionaire tech CEO while her 8-year-old daughter calculated the statistical probability of various traffic patterns and her other 8-year-old. Son analyzed the architectural design principles of Manhattan skyscrapers. This was her life. This had always been her life. The only difference was that now someone else was witnessing the beautiful chaos of raising 4 geniuses. When they reached Ethan's penthouse, Emma felt like she was entering a different world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. Everything was pristine, elegant, and completely unsuitable for children. Wow, Zoe breathed, running to the windows. Look how high up we are. The building's structural engineering is impressive, Lucas noted, studying the ceiling. This penthouse must weigh at least 40 tons, but the load distribution appears optimal. Papa, Sophia said, looking around at all the expensive art and furniture. Do you actually live here? It doesn't look like anyone lives here. Emma saw Ethan pause, looking at his own home through his children's eyes. It was beautiful, but it was cold. It was the home of someone who worked 18-hour days and slept alone. I live here, Ethan said quietly, but you're right. It doesn't feel much like a home. That's because homes need families, Mason said. Matter-of-factly, we learned that in social studies. Houses are just buildings until people love each other in them. Emma watched Ethan's face as he absorbed that piece of elementary school wisdom. Kids, Emma said, why don't you explore for a few minutes while your father and I talk? Mama, are you going to tell Papa why you were scared to contact him? Sophia asked with the directness that Emma both loved and feared. Yes, sweetheart. Good, Lucas said. Papa should know that you cried every year on his birthday because you wish you could send him pictures of us growing up. Emma felt her face burn with embarrassment. Lucas, that's private. But it's important data for Papa to have, Zoe argued. He should know you never forgot him. You cried on my birthday? Ethan asked softly. Emma looked anywhere but at his face. Kids, go explore, and don't touch anything expensive. The children scattered throughout the penthouse, their voices echoing as they discovered new rooms and marveled at everything from the smart home. Technology to the view from the bathroom. Emma and Ethan stood in the living room, suddenly alone, together for the first time in 6 years. You remember my birthday, Ethan said. I remember everything about that night, Emma admitted. It was the best night of my life, followed by the most terrifying morning of my life. Why were you so scared? Emma sat down on his impossibly expensive couch and tried to find words for feelings she'd been carrying for 6 years. Because I was nobody, she said finally. I was a broke graduate student who'd been working 3 jobs just to pay rent. You were ... You were famous and brilliant and worth more money than I could even imagine. When I realized who you were, I panicked. So, you left money on my nightstand like I was a prostitute. There was hurt in Ethan's voice, but also confusion. Emma winced. I was trying to prove I wasn't after your money. I know how stupid that sounds now, but I was 22 and terrified. I thought if I left money, you'd know I wasn't trying to trap you. Emma, I didn't care about money that night. I cared about you. We talked for hours about everything except money or business. You were the first person I met in years who saw me as just Ethan, not Ethan Cross, the CEO. I know that now, Emma said. But at the time, all I could think about was how every magazine article about you mentioned gold diggers and women who were trying to get close to you for your wealth. I was afraid you'd think I had planned the whole thing. Did you? Plan it? Emma looked at him sharply. No, Ethan, I didn't even know you were going to be at that party. I went because they promised free food, and I was living on ramen noodles. She saw him relax slightly. When I found out I was pregnant, Emma continued, I thought about contacting you. I really did. But then I imagined how that conversation would go. Hi, it's Emma from the conference. You probably don't remember me, but surprise, you're going to be a father. I would have remembered you, Ethan said quietly. I never forgot that night. I never forgot you. Emma felt tears prick her eyes again. You didn't? Emma, I tried to find you. I contacted the conference organizers, the hotel, everyone I could. Think of, you giving me a first name and disappeared like Cinderella. I had no way to reach you. You tried to find me? For months. I kept thinking about what you'd said about recursive algorithms and machine learning. I kept thinking about how you laughed at my stupid jokes. I kept wondering what I'd done wrong to make you run away. Emma felt like someone had punched her in the chest. You didn't do anything wrong. Ethan, that night was perfect. You were perfect. That's why I was so scared. They sat in silence for a moment, processing 6 years of misunderstanding and missed opportunities. When I found out I was having quadruplets, Emma said, I knew I definitely couldn't contact you. Who would believe that story? 4 babies from one night. It sounded like something out of a soap opera. 4 babies, Ethan repeated, shaking his head. How did you manage? Badly. At first, I was on bed rest for 3 months. I lost my job. I spent my savings on medical bills. When the babies were born, they were so small. Emma's voice cracked. They spent 2 months in the NICU. I thought I was going to lose them. Ethan moved closer to her on the couch. Emma, I'm sorry. I should have been there. You couldn't be there because you didn't know. That's on me. Why didn't you contact me after they were born? When you needed help. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Because by then, I'd been handling everything alone for so long that I was afraid of what would happen if I let someone else in. I was afraid you'd try to take them away from me. I was afraid you'd think I was an unfit mother. I was afraid of a lot of things. And when you started working at Cross Technologies, that was a coincidence, Emma said. I applied because you had excellent benefits and flexible hours. I never intended to get close to you. I actually worked very hard to stay invisible. You did a good job of that, Ethan said wryly. 3 years of meetings, and I barely noticed you. That was the plan. Emma, Ethan said, turning to face her fully. What happens now? Before Emma could answer, Mason's voice echoed from somewhere in the penthouse. Papa, your home security system is really good, but I've found a way to improve it. Mason, Emma called. Don't hack your father's apartment. Too late, Mama. I already upgraded his firewall. Emma buried her face in her hands. I'm sorry. They're brilliant, but they have no sense of boundaries when it comes to technology. Ethan was trying not to smile. It's okay. Actually, it's incredible. How do you handle 4 of them? Very carefully and with a lot of coffee. Mama, Papa, Sophia's voice joined Mason's. You need to see this. Papa has a room full of computers, and we found some really interesting code. Oh no, Emma muttered, standing up. We need to go get them before they accidentally reprogram your entire building. But when they reached Ethan's home office, they found the 4 children clustered around his monitors, not destroying anything, but actually improving his code. Look, Papa, Lucas said, pointing to the screen, we identified 17 inefficiencies in your latest AI program. If you restructure the neural network architecture like this, you'll increase processing speed by 34%. Ethan stared at the screen, then at Lucas, then back at the screen. You're 8 years old. 8 3/4, Lucas corrected. And age is irrelevant when it comes to logical analysis. Papa, Zoe said, we also found something else. Someone's been accessing Your research files without authorization. Look at these access logs. Emma watched Ethan's expression change as he studied the screen. What kind of unauthorized access? Someone with administrative credentials has been copying your AI research files, Mason explained. But they're being really sneaky about it. They're taking small amounts over long periods, so it wouldn't trigger your security alerts. It's corporate espionage, Sophia said matter-of-factly. Someone's stealing your work. Ethan's face darkened. Can you trace where the files are going? Already did, Lucas said, pulling up another screen. The IP address traces back to Parker Pharmaceuticals. Someone there has been downloading your research for the past 8 months. Parker Pharmaceuticals, Ethan repeated slowly. Madison's company. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. You think Madison is stealing your research? I think someone at her company is, Ethan said, his voice tight with anger. And I'm going to find out who. Papa, Zoe said softly. Are you okay? You look really mad. Ethan took a deep breath and forced his expression to soften. I'm not mad at you kids. You did excellent work finding this. I'm mad at the people who are stealing from my company. We can help you catch them, Mason offered. We're really good at tracking digital footprints and setting up surveillance systems. Absolutely not, Emma said firmly. You are not getting involved in corporate espionage. You're children. But Mama, we're really good at it, Sophia protested. That's exactly why you're not doing it, Emma replied. Being good at something doesn't mean you should do it if it's dangerous. Ethan looked at Emma with something that might have been respect. You're right. This is adult business. But Papa, Lucas said, if someone's stealing from you, they might try to hurt your IPO or your company. We should help protect you. Emma saw Ethan's expression soften as he looked at his son. Lucas, I appreciate that you want to help, but your job isn't to protect me. My job is to protect you. Does that mean you want to be our dad for real? Zoe asked with the directness that 8-year-olds specialize in. Ethan looked at the 4 children, then at Emma. Yes, he said simply. That's exactly what it means. Emma felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. Ethan, we need to talk about this privately. There are legal issues and custody considerations and, Mama, Mason interrupted. Papa already said he wants us. The legal stuff is just paperwork. It's not just paperwork, Emma said. This is complicated. Only if we make it complicated, Ethan said. Emma, I want to be part of their lives. I want to be part of your life. We can figure out the details. As we go, before Emma could respond, Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened again. It's Madison, he said. I should take this. Papa, Sophia said, remember what we said about the 23% compatibility rating? I remember, Ethan said, and Emma caught the hint of a smile in his voice. He answered the phone, and Emma could hear Madison's voice even from across the room. She sounded hysterical. Ethan, where are you? The media is going crazy. Our engagement announcement is ruined. You need to come back and fix this. Madison, Ethan said calmly, we need to talk. About a lot of things, but not on the phone. What? Do you mean we need to talk? Ethan, you can't seriously be considering choosing that woman and those children over our relationship. Emma saw the children exchange glances. Even at their ages, they could recognize desperation and manipulation. Madison, I'll call you back. Ethan said, and hung up. Papa, Zoe said softly, that lady sounds mean when she's angry. Yeah, Mason agreed. Her vocal stress patterns indicate deception and emotional instability. Emma looked at her son with exasperation. Mason, you can't psychoanalyze everyone you meet. But it's useful data, Mama. We need to know if people are safe to be around. Ethan knelt down so he was at eye level with Mason. What did you conclude? About Madison? She's not safe, Lucas said before Mason could answer. She uses manipulation tactics and emotional coercion to achieve her goals. Those are indicators of narcissistic personality traits. Plus, Sophia added, she doesn't really love you. She loves your money and status. If you weren't rich and famous, she wouldn't want to marry you. Emma was mortified. Kids, you can't say things like that about people. But it's true, Mama, Zoe said. We observed her behavior patterns during public appearances and interviews. She only smiles when cameras are around, and she never talks about Papa as a person, only as an achievement. Ethan was staring at his children with something that looked like awe. You've been studying my relationship with Madison? Research, Mason said proudly. We needed to assess all potential threats to family stability before revealing ourselves. And Madison is a threat? Statistically speaking, yes, Lucas said. Her behavior pattern suggests she would view us as obstacles to her goals rather than additions to the family structure. Emma wanted to tell her children to stop being so wise about adult relationships, but she was starting to realize that everything they were saying was probably true. Ethan's phone rang again. This time it was his mother. Ethan, dear, you need to come home immediately. Madison is here, and she's making quite a scene. She's threatening to call the press and tell them that woman has been blackmailing you. Emma felt her stomach drop. Blackmailing him? Ethan's expression grew dangerous. Mom, I'll be there in 20 minutes. And tell Madison that if she says one word to the press about Emma or the children, she'll be hearing from my lawyers. He hung up and turned to Emma. I need to go deal with this. Will you come with me? I don't think that's a good idea. Emma said, if Madison is already upset, my presence will just make things worse. Mama, Sophia said, you can't let mean people scare you. We're smart enough to handle whatever she says. This isn't about being smart, sweetheart. This is about avoiding unnecessary drama. But Mama, Zoe argued, if Papa has to choose between you and the mean lady, shouldn't you be there to represent our family? Emma looked at her daughter's earnest face and realized that somehow, in the space of a few hours, they'd gone from being a family of 5 to being part of something bigger and more complicated. Okay, Emma said, we'll go. But kids, I need you to promise me you'll let the adults handle this conversation. We promise, Mama, all 4 children said in unison, with the kind of synchronization that Emma knew meant they were already planning something. This was going to be a disaster. The Cross family estate in the Upper East Side was the kind of place that made Emma acutely aware of how different her world was from Ethan's. The townhouse was 5 stories of old money elegance, with marble floors and oil paintings and furniture that probably cost more than Emma's annual salary. Wow, Mason breathed as they walked through the front door. This place is like a museum. It's very nice, Sophia said diplomatically, which was her way of saying it was beautiful but cold. The architectural details suggest the building is at least 100 years old, Lucas observed. Interesting preservation work. Zoe was too busy staring at a chandelier to comment. Emma felt completely out of place in her simple dress and target. Flats, but the children seemed to adapt instantly, the way they always did. Ethan! Catherine Cross appeared in the foyer, looking frazzled in a way Emma suspected was unusual for her. Thank goodness you're here. Madison is in the drawing room, and she's not taking this well. Catherine's gaze fell on Emma and the children, and her expression softened slightly. Emma, children, welcome to our home. Thank you for having us, Mrs. Cross, Emma said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Grandma Catherine, Zoe said with a bright smile, your house is really pretty. Emma saw Catherine's composure crack just a little at being called Grandma. Thank you, sweetheart. Where's Madison? Ethan asked, his voice tight with tension. Drawing room, as I said, and Ethan ... She's brought someone with her, a man she claims is the children's real father. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. What? She says she's brought the real father to prove that you've been lying about the children's parentage. Mason looked up at Emma with concern. Mama, what does that mean? Before Emma could answer, they heard voices from the drawing room. Madison's voice, high and shrill with anger, and a man's voice trying to calm her down. She's been planning this for months. It's an elaborate scam designed to disrupt the IPO and steal Ethan's fortune. Madison, please, let's discuss this calmly. The man's voice said. Ethan's jaw was tight with anger. Come on, let's get this over with. They walked into the drawing room, and Emma immediately saw Madison pacing in front of the fireplace, while a tall, handsome man sat in one of the chairs looking uncomfortable. Madison spun around when they entered, her face flushed with fury. There they are, the scam artists. The man stood up, and Emma felt a shock of recognition. She'd seen him before on billboards and in magazines. He was Ryan Mitchell, the actor who'd been in those action movies a few years ago. Madison, Ethan said, his voice dangerously calm. What exactly is going on here? I'm exposing the truth. Madison declared dramatically. This woman has been lying to you. These children aren't yours at all. Their real father is Ryan Mitchell. Ryan Mitchell looked extremely uncomfortable. Madison, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Tell them. Madison commanded. Tell them about your relationship with Emma Rodriguez. Emma stared at the actor in confusion. I'm sorry, but I've never met this man in my life. That's a lie. Madison shrieked. Ryan, tell them about the hotel room 6 years ago. Ryan Mitchell looked around the room, his eyes landing on the 4 children who were watching the scene with the fascination of scientists observing an experiment. Madison, Ryan said carefully, I think we should discuss this privately. No. Madison was clearly spiraling. I paid you to come here and tell the truth. So tell them. The room went completely silent. Even the children stopped moving. You paid him? Ethan's voice was deadly quiet. Ryan Mitchell's face went pale. Madison, you said this was about clearing up a misunderstanding. You didn't say anything. About us. How much? Ethan demanded. $500,000, Ryan admitted, looking miserable. She said it was to help clear up a paternity dispute, and that the truth would come out anyway. Madison realized she just confessed to fraud in front of a room full of witnesses. That's not... I didn't mean... Ryan, you're supposed to say you're their father. But I'm not their father, Ryan said, looking directly at Emma. Ma'am, I am so sorry. I had no idea what I was walking into. Madison told me you were trying to scam money from Mr. Cross, and she just wanted to prove the children weren't his. Emma felt like she was watching a car crash in slow motion. You paid and acted to pretend to be the father of my children. Mason stepped forward, his young face serious. Lady, that's fraud. You could go to jail for that. How dare you? Madison turned on Mason with a fury that made Emma step protectively in front of her son. You little brat, you've ruined everything. Madison. Ethan's voice cut through the room like a knife. Apologize to my son. Now, your son? You don't even know if he's your son. He's my son, Ethan said with absolute certainty. They're all my children. And if you ever speak to any of them like that again, I will destroy you. Emma had never heard that tone from Ethan before. It was quiet, controlled, and absolutely terrifying. Catherine Cross stepped forward. Madison, dear, I think you should leave. Leave? I'm not leaving. I'm his fiancée. We're supposed to be married next month. Not anymore, Ethan said simply. Madison stared at him like he'd slapped her. You can't be serious. You're going to choose some nobody and her bastard children. Over me? The word bastard hung in the air like a physical blow. Emma saw red, but before she could react, Lucas stepped forward. Ma'am, Lucas said with the politeness that Emma had taught him, that word is both inaccurate and inappropriate. We're not illegitimate children. We're genius children with 2 parents who care about us. You're just a mean person who's sad because nobody really loves you. The 8-year-old's calm assessment was somehow more devastating than any adult insult could have been. Madison looked around the room desperately. You're all insane. These children have been coached. This entire thing is a setup. Madison. Ryan Mitchell said quietly, I think you should stop talking. You're just making this worse. Shut up. I paid you to back me up. You paid me under false pretenses, Ryan said, standing up. Mr. Cross, I am genuinely sorry for my part in this. I was told this woman was being extorted, and I was helping to expose a fraud. I had no idea the situation was this. It's all right, Ethan said, though his voice suggested it was absolutely not all right. You can go. Ryan Mitchell looked at Emma apologetically. Ma'am, I hope you can forgive me. I would never have been part of this if I'd known the truth. It's okay, Emma said quietly. You were being lied to too. After Ryan left, the room fell silent except for Madison's increasingly frantic breathing. Madison, Catherine Cross, said with the kind of cold politeness that only old money could perfect. I believe Ethan asked you to leave. This isn't over, Madison said, pointing at Emma. I'll expose you for what you really are. I'll tell everyone that you're a gold-digging whore who enough. Ethan's voice exploded through the room. Madison, get out. Now, before I call security. You'll regret this, Madison snarled. All of you will regret this. She stormed toward the door, then stopped and turned back. And when your precious little family falls apart, when these children turn out to be lying little monsters, when this woman shows her true colors, don't come crying to me. We won't, Sophia said matter-of-factly, because we're not lying monsters, and Mama isn't showing true colors because she's always been exactly who she is. Madison's face twisted with rage, but before she could say anything else, Robert Cross appeared in the doorway. Ms. Parker, he said with the kind of authority that came from decades of running a major corporation, you're no longer welcome in this house. Please leave immediately, or I will call the police. Madison looked around the room one more time, her gaze landing on each of them with pure hatred, then stormed out. They all stood in silence for a moment, listening to the sound of the front door slamming. Well, Catherine Cross said finally, that was unpleasant. Grandma Catherine, Zoe said softly, is that lady going to try to hurt our family? Catherine knelt down so she was at eye level with Zoe. Sweetheart, that lady is very angry and not thinking clearly. But she can hurt our family because we're going to protect each other. That's right, Robert Cross agreed, coming over to join them. And now that the unpleasantness is over, I think we should get to know our new grandchildren properly. Over the next hour, Emma watched in amazement as her children charmed their new grandparents completely. Mason showed Robert how to optimize his tablet's security settings. Sophia helped Catherine calculate the most efficient seating arrangement for an upcoming charity dinner. Lucas analyzed the stock market implications of the day's events and suggested strategies for managing media coverage. And Zoe taught both grandparents basic phrases in Mandarin. These children are remarkable, Catherine said to Emma as they watched Ethan help Mason set up a chess game. How do you keep up with them? Very carefully, Emma admitted, and with a lot of help from each other. They're good kids, but they need constant mental stimulation or they get into trouble. What kind of trouble? Robert asked, looking genuinely curious. Well, last month Lucas hacked into the city's traffic light system because he wanted to optimize traffic flow patterns. The month before that, Sophia calculated the mathematical probability of every student in her class and started a betting pool on test scores. And Mason once reprogrammed the school's PA system to play educational podcasts instead of morning announcements. Catherine and Robert exchanged glances. They sound exactly like Ethan at that age, Catherine said. Brilliant, but mischievous. I was never that bad, Ethan protested from across the room. You hacked into the Pentagon when you were 12, Robert reminded him. I was testing their security, Ethan said defensively. See, Mason said proudly. Papa understands why we do things. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, watching Ethan interact with the children. He didn't talk down to them or treat them like typical kids. He engaged with them on their level, asked them real questions, and seemed genuinely interested in their answers. "Emma," Catherine said quietly, "I owe you an apology. Mrs. Cross, you don't. I do. When those children first appeared today, my first instinct was to protect Ethan and our family's reputation. I didn't think about what you must have gone through, raising 4 children alone while working and trying to provide for them. You were protecting your son," Emma said. "I understand that. Still, I should have recognized immediately that these children are family. Looking at them now, it's so obvious they're Ethan's. They have his intelligence, his curiosity, his stubborn determination, and his complete inability to leave technology alone," Emma added wryly as Mason started explaining quantum computing concepts to his grandfather. Catherine laughed. That too. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and felt her stomach drop. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked, noticing her expression. "It's from my landlord," Emma said. "He wants to see me tomorrow morning. He says there are concerns about my living situation that need to be addressed." "What kind of concerns?" Robert asked. "I don't know, but ... Emma felt sick. Madison said this wasn't over. What if she's trying to get us evicted?" "She can't do that," Ethan said immediately. "Actually, she probably can," Lucas said, looking up from the chessboard. "If she can prove that Mama's income has changed or that our family situation has become unstable." Most rental agreements have clauses that allow landlords to terminate leases. Emma stared at her 8-year-old son. "How do you know about rental?" "Law. I read Mama's lease agreement when we moved in," Lucas said matter-of-factly. "I wanted to understand our housing security parameters." "Of course you did," Emma said faintly. "Don't worry, Mama," Sophia said. "If we get evicted, we can live with Papa." Emma felt her face heat up. "Sweetheart, it's not that simple." "Why not?" Zoe asked. "Papa has a big house, and we're his kids, so we should live together anyway." "Because Mama and Papa aren't married," Mason explained patiently. "Adults have complicated rules about living together." "Then Papa should marry Mama," Zoe said with the logic of someone who hadn't yet learned that emotions were more complex. Then mathematics. Emma wanted to disappear into the floor. "Kids, relationships don't work that way." "But you love Papa," Sophia said, "and Papa loves you. We calculate the probability based on observable behaviors and verbal indicators." "You calculated the probability of your parents being in love?" Catherine asked, sounding fascinated and horrified in equal measure. 83.7%, Lucas said proudly. "Accounting for variables including prolonged eye contact, vocal stress patterns, defensive behaviors regarding each other, and physiological responses to proximity." Ethan was staring at the children with an expression Emma couldn't read. "You think your mother and I love each other?" "We don't think," Mason said. "We know. The data is conclusive." Emma felt like she was having an out-of-body experience. Her children had just announced to a room full of people that she was in love with Ethan Cross, complete with statistical analysis. "Kids," she said weakly, "some things can't be calculated." "But love can be," Zoe insisted. "Love is just a combination of compatibility factors, shared values, emotional connection, and physical attraction. You and Papa score high in all categories. Plus," Sophia added, "you both get sad when you're not together. That's a primary indicator of attachment." Emma looked helplessly at Ethan, who was watching this entire conversation with something that might have been amusement. "Are they right?" he asked quietly. "About which part?" Emma asked, though she was pretty sure she knew. "All of it." Emma looked at the 4 children who were watching this exchange with the intensity of scientists observing a crucial experiment. She looked at Catherine and Robert, who were trying not to smile. She looked at Ethan, who was waiting for an answer, with the patience of someone who had all the time in the world. "This is not how I imagined this conversation happening," Emma said finally. "But Mama Zoe said softly. Sometimes the best conversations happen when you're not planning them. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Her 8-year-old daughter was right. As usual, double quotes yes, Emma said, so quietly she wasn't sure anyone heard her. Yes, what? Ethan asked, stepping closer. Yes, they're right, about all of it. Ethan smiled then, the kind of real smile that Mason had been talking about, the one that reached his eyes and made him look years younger. Good, Ethan said simply. Because they're right about me too. Really? Sophia asked excitedly. We calculated correctly? You calculated correctly, Ethan confirmed, and Emma felt her heart do something acrobatic in her chest. So are you going to get married now? Mason asked with the practicality of someone solving a logistics problem. Mason, Emma said, that's not how. Actually, Ethan interrupted, that's exactly how it works. When two people love each other and have 4 brilliant children together, getting married is the logical next step. Emma stared at him. Ethan, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Emma, will you marry me? Papa's proposing, Zoe squealed, clapping her hands. Without a ring, Sophia noted. That's statistically suboptimal for proposal success rates. I don't have a ring yet, Ethan said, laughing. But I have something better. What's better than a ring? Lucas asked, genuinely curious. A family, Ethan said, looking at all of them. I have a family. Emma felt tears spilling down her cheeks. Ethan, this is crazy. We barely know each other. Mama, Mason said gently, you've known Papa for 6 years. You just didn't talk to him for most of it. And we know Papa, Zoe added. We researched him for 8 months, remember? Plus, Lucas said, the statistical analysis indicates high compatibility and low probability of relationship failure. And most importantly, Sophia said, Papa makes you happy. Really happy, not just pretend happy. Emma looked at these 4 incredible children who had somehow orchestrated the most complicated family reunion in history and were now calmly discussing marriage proposals like they were planning a science fair project. What do you say? Ethan asked softly. Will you take a chance on us? Emma looked into his eyes and saw everything she'd been afraid to hope for. Love, acceptance, partnership, and the promise of a future where her children would never have to wonder where they belonged. Yes, she said, and the room erupted in cheers from 4 genius children and 2 very relieved grandparents. But as Ethan kissed her, and the children celebrated and Catherine started making plans for a wedding, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Madison's threats weren't empty ones, and she was right to be worried. The next morning brought the first wave of Madison's revenge. Emma's landlord was waiting outside her building when she arrived home to pack some clothes for the children. He was a thin, nervous man who had always been reasonable to deal with, but today he looked uncomfortable and apologetic. Ms. Rodriguez, I'm sorry, but I need you to vacate the apartment by the end of the week. What? Why? Emma felt her stomach drop. I'm current on rent. I haven't violated any terms of the lease. I received a call this morning from someone claiming to be a Child Protective Services investigator. They said there were concerns about the living conditions and that an investigation was pending. Emma felt the world tilt. CPS? That's impossible. My children are well cared for. I'm sure they are, but I can't have that kind of investigation associated with my building. Bad for business. You understand. Mr. Chun, my children and I have lived here for 3 years without any problems. This is obviously some kind of mistake or false report. Maybe so, but I also received a call from Parker Pharmaceuticals this morning. They're offering to buy this entire building for development, 3 times what it's worth. Emma's blood ran cold. Madison was trying to force her out by buying her building. Mr. Chun, please, just give me a few days to sort this out. I'm sorry, Ms. Rodriguez, I really am, but business is business. Emma climbed the stairs to her apartment, feeling like she was walking through a nightmare. Inside, she found the children, waiting for her, already packed and ready to go. Mama, Mason said quietly. "We heard you talking to Mr. Chun. Are we being evicted?" "It looks like it, sweetheart." "Because of the mean lady?" Zoe asked. "Probably. Can we call Papa?" Sophia asked. "He'll fix it." Emma sat down heavily on her couch, looking around at the small apartment that had been home for 3 years. It wasn't much, but it had been theirs. Safe, comfortable, filled with love and laughter and the controlled chaos of raising 4 geniuses. "We can call Papa," Emma said, "but I want you to understand something. Just because Papa wants to be part of our family doesn't mean all our problems will magically disappear. Some things we still have to handle ourselves." "But Mama," Lucas said, "when families work together, they're stronger than when individuals work alone. That's basic social science." Emma's phone rang before she could respond. It was Ethan. "Emma, where are you?" "I've been trying to reach you. At my apartment, we're being evicted." "What? How is that possible?" Emma explained about the CPS call and the building purchase offer. "That bitch," Ethan said, and Emma was startled by the venom in his voice. "She's trying to destabilize your living situation to make you look like an unfit mother." "Papa said a bad word," Zoe whispered loudly, and despite everything, Emma almost smiled. "Emma, pack whatever you need and come to my place. All of you, right now." "Ethan, I can't just move in with you. We're not even officially engaged yet." "We're officially engaged as of last night. And you're not moving in with me. You're coming home. There's a difference." Emma felt tears threatening again. "Ethan, Emma, Madison has declared war. She's not going to stop with eviction threats. She's going to come after you, the children, your job, whatever it takes to try to break us up. We need to be together so we can protect each other." "She can do that?" "She's got money, connections, and no conscience." "Yes, she can do that, but so do I, and I'm going to stop her." Emma looked at her children, who were listening to every word with the serious expressions they got when they were processing important information. "Okay," Emma said, "we'll come to your place. But Ethan, I need you to understand that I don't want to be rescued. I want to be an equal partner in whatever comes next. Emma, you've been handling everything alone for 6 years. You've raised 4 incredible children while working full-time and keeping all of us safe. You're not being rescued. You're being reinforced." Emma felt something tight in her chest loosen just a little. "We'll be there in an hour. I'll send a car. We can take the subway. Emma, Madison knows where you live now. She knows your routines. Until we figure out what she's planning. Next, I want you to have security." The thought that Madison might actually be dangerous hadn't occurred to Emma. She looked at her children again and made a decision. "Okay, send the car?" After Emma hung up, Mason looked at her seriously. "Mama, are we going to be okay?" "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be fine." "But the mean lady is trying to hurt us," Sophia said. "The mean lady is trying to scare us," Emma corrected. "But we're not going to let her succeed. Because we're smarter than she is," Lucas said with confidence. "And because Papa loves us," Zoe added. "And because we have each other," Emma said, pulling all 4 children into a group hug. "No matter what happens, we have each other." But as they waited for Ethan's car, Emma couldn't help wondering what Madison would try next. And she was afraid she was going to find out sooner than she wanted to. Meanwhile, at Parker Pharmaceuticals, Madison was implementing phase 2 of her plan. "Are you sure about this, Madison?" Her assistant asked nervously. "Hacking into Cross Technology servers is a federal crime." "We're not hacking," Madison said coldly. "We're conducting competitive intelligence gathering. And besides, they'll never be able to prove it was us." She turned to the man sitting at the computer terminal. He was thin, pale, and looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Marcus, I need you to download everything you can from their A research division. Focus on the neural network architectures and the machine learning algorithms. Ms. Parker, this is way beyond what you hired me for. I thought you just wanted me to monitor their public filings and press releases. Plans change. I'm paying you triple your usual rate. Just do what I ask. Marcus reluctantly turned back to the computer. He'd been hired as a freelance cybersecurity consultant, but what Madison was asking him to do was definitely illegal. Miss Parker, even if I can get into their systems, stealing proprietary research is corporate espionage. We could both go to prison, only if we get caught, Madison said. And we won't get caught because Ethan is too distracted by his new family to pay attention to his security systems. What Madison didn't know was that Mason had already identified the security breach and installed additional monitoring software. Every keystroke Marcus made was being recorded and traced back to its source. At that exact moment, 30 miles away in Ethan's penthouse, an alert popped up on Mason's tablet. "Papa," Mason called out. "They're doing it again. Someone's trying to steal your research files." Ethan came running from the kitchen, where he'd been helping Emma make lunch. "Are you sure?" "Look!" Mason held up his tablet, showing streams of data being copied from cross-technology servers. "They're downloading everything from your AI division. Can you trace where it's going?" "Already aimed," Mason said, his fingers flying over the tablet. Screen. It's the same IP address before. Parker Pharmaceuticals. Ethan's expression turned dangerous. "She's stealing my research to damage the IPO. "Not just that," Lucas said, looking up from his own laptop. "I've been analyzing the download patterns. She's specifically targeting the files that would be most valuable to pharmaceutical companies. I think she's planning to sell your research to her competitors." Emma looked between her children and Ethan, feeling lost. "Can someone explain this to me in terms that don't require a computer science degree?" "Madison is stealing Papa's work," Sophia explained. "She's taking his artificial intelligence research and probably planning to use it for her own company. Or sell it to other companies. That's theft," Emma said. "That's corporate espionage," Ethan corrected. "And it's a federal crime. Papa," Zoe said softly, "can we help catch her?" "Absolutely not," Emma said immediately. "You are not getting involved in this." "But Mama, we're already involved," Mason pointed out. "We're the ones who discovered the theft." "That's different from actively participating in catching criminals." "Actually," Lucas said thoughtfully, "we might be able to help without doing anything dangerous." Emma didn't like where this was going. "How?" "We could set up a honey trap," Mason explained. "We create fake research files that look valuable but are actually harmless, and we monitor who accesses them. That way, when the bad guys steal the fake files, we have proof of who did it." Sophia added. Ethan was looking at the children with something that might have been pride. "That's actually a brilliant strategy." "Ethan," Emma said warningly, "they're children. They're brilliant children who have already uncovered a major crime," Ethan replied. "And they're suggesting a completely legal and safe way to gather evidence." Emma looked at her 4 children, who were watching her with hopeful expressions. She'd spent 6 years trying to keep them out of adult problems, but maybe it was time to admit that her children weren't exactly typical kids. "Fine," Emma said. "But I want to understand exactly what you're planning, and I want assurances that it's completely safe." "It is, Mama," Mason said earnestly. "We're just creating fake files and watching who looks at them. It's like setting up a security camera." "A very sophisticated security camera," Lucas added. Emma sighed. "Okay, but the moment this becomes dangerous, you stop. Promise me." "We promise, Mama," all 4 children said in unison. Emma had a feeling she was going to regret this at Manhattan Prep Academy. The next phase of Madison's attack was already underway. Principal Williams was reviewing a file that had been delivered to her office that morning by a very expensive-looking lawyer. "Mrs. Rodriguez has been dishonest about her children's background," the lawyer was explaining. Our client has reason to believe that the children may not be safe in their current educational environment. What kind of safety concerns? Principal Williams asked, though she was already mentally calculating how much money Parker Pharmaceuticals donated to the school annually. The children have exhibited signs of emotional instability and aggressive behavior. There are also questions about their academic records, specifically whether their test scores are legitimate or if they've been coached to appear more gifted than they actually are. Principal Williams looked at the file. Mason, Sophia, Lucas, and Zoe Rodriguez had been model students for the past year. Their test scores were extraordinary, their behavior was exemplary, and their teachers consistently praised their creativity and cooperation. I have to say, this doesn't match my experience with these children at all. Children can be very good at hiding behavioral problems from authority figures, the lawyer said smoothly. Our client is simply concerned about the safety of other students. And who is your client? Madison Parker of Parker Pharmaceuticals. I believe you're familiar with her family's contributions to educational institutions. Principal Williams was indeed familiar with the Parker family's contributions. They'd funded the new computer lab and the science wing. Crossing them would be ... problematic. What exactly are you suggesting? A thorough psychological evaluation of all 4 children, conducted by specialists of our choosing. If the children are as stable and gifted as they appear, the evaluation will confirm that. If not, well, then appropriate measures can be taken. Principal Williams felt uncomfortable, but the implied threat was clear. Cross Parker Pharmaceuticals, and the school's funding would disappear. I'll need to speak with the children's mother. Of course. But I should mention that Mrs. Rodriguez is currently involved in a custody dispute with the children's father. The situation is quite volatile. That was news to Principal Williams. Yesterday, these had been 4 well-adjusted children with a devoted single mother. Now, apparently there was a custody battle and questions about their emotional stability. I'll schedule a meeting with Mrs. Rodriguez for tomorrow morning, Principal Williams said reluctantly. Excellent. And in the meantime, perhaps it would be best if the children were kept separate from the other students. For everyone's safety. After the lawyer left, Principal Williams sat in her office feeling deeply uncomfortable about the whole conversation. But Parker Pharmaceuticals was one of the school's largest donors, and she couldn't afford to alienate them. She called down to the children's teachers and arranged for Mason, Sophia, Lucas, and Zoe to be moved to isolated study areas for the rest of the day. When the children were pulled out of their regular classes and told they would be studying alone, they immediately knew something was wrong. This is because of the mean lady, isn't it? Sophia asked their teacher, Mrs. Chen. I don't know what you mean, sweetheart. The principal just thought you might benefit from some individualized attention. But the children were too smart to buy the explanation. During lunch, they managed to meet in the library to compare notes. We're being isolated, Lucas observed. This is a classic intimidation tactic. She's trying to make it look like we're problem children, Mason said angrily. She's trying to hurt Mama, Zoe said, tears threatening. No, Sophia said firmly. She's trying to scare us. But we're not going to be scared. What should we do? Zoe asked. We document everything, Mason said. We record what the teachers tell us. We note changes in our treatment, and we report it to Papa and Mama. And we stick together, Lucas added. Whatever they try to do, we don't let them separate us. The children spent the rest of the day carefully observing and documenting every interaction with school staff. By the time Emma came to pick them up, they had compiled a detailed report of the unusual treatment they'd received. Mama, Sophia said as they walked to the car, something's wrong at school. Emma listened as the children described their day, feeling her anger build with each detail. They're trying to make it look like you're problem children, Emma said. Madison is attacking from multiple angles. When they got back to Ethan's penthouse, the children immediately presented their findings to their father. She's escalating, Ethan said after reviewing their report. First the eviction, now the school. She's trying to destabilize every aspect of your lives. What's next? Emma asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. Probably Child Protective Services, Lucas said matter-of-factly. If she can make it appear that we're emotionally disturbed and you're an unfit mother, she can try to have us removed from your custody. Emma felt like someone had poured ice water into her veins. Can she do that? If she has enough money and the right connections, she can try, Ethan said grimly. But she won't succeed. How can you be sure? Because we're going to stop her. First, Emma looked at Ethan, then at her 4 children, who were watching this conversation with the serious expressions of people planning a battle strategy. What do we do? Emma asked. Mason looked up from his tablet with a small, satisfied smile. We spring our trap. Do you know that feeling when you think you know someone, only to find out they're completely different than you imagined? That's exactly what happened to Ethan. When he saw Emma sitting by their son's hospital bed, Emma cried for 3 hours. Not the loud, attention-seeking kind, but the quiet, desperate cry of a mother who thinks she might lose her child. Ethan had never seen someone love so deeply. Emma, he said softly, placing his hand on her shoulder, Hero will be fine. Emma looked up at him with red eyes. You don't understand. I raised him since he was 6 months old. He's not my biological son, but I love him like my own. Ethan felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. The boy isn't yours? Hero, Lucas and Zoe are all adopted, Emma confessed, wiping away tears. Only Mason and Sophia are your biological children. I adopted the other 3 from an orphanage when they were young. They were so smart. No one wanted to adopt them because they were too difficult to raise. The story just got more complicated. Ethan sat down in the chair next to him, trying to process this information. So why do you ... Why did you raise 5 children alone? Emma smiled sadly. Because they needed me, and I needed them. When I found out I was pregnant with twins, I was terrified. But then I met 3 other children at the orphanage, just as smart and lonely as Mason and Sophia will be. I thought they could grow up together, understand each other. Ethan looked out the window of the hospital room, where the other 3 kids were sitting in the waiting room. Mason was working on something on his laptop, probably hacking into the hospital system to monitor Hero's condition. Sophia was doing math problems to distract herself. Zoe was talking to the nurse in Spanish. Their family, Ethan said. Not a question but a statement. Yes, Emma insisted. And I won't let anyone separate them, not even you. That's when Ethan realized what he'd been missing all these weeks. Emma wasn't just the mother of his child. She was the mother of 5 geniuses, and she'd sacrifice everything to keep them together. Do you think I'll separate them? He asked. I don't know what you do, Emma said honestly. Rich people have their own rules. Before Ethan could reply, the doctor walked into the room with a smile on his face. Good news, said the doctor. The boy will be fine. He is very healthy, and the transfusion was successful. He can go home in a few days. Emma collapsed into a chair, so relieved she almost fainted. Ethan caught her, and for the first time in 6 years, he felt like he was doing the right thing. Thank you, Emma whispered. Without your blood. We're family, Ethan said, echoing what Mason had said. Family takes care of each other. But outside in the hospital hallway, Madison Parker stood with the phone pressed to her ear, her voice filled with anger. No, I don't care what he's doing, she asked into the phone. He has to get back to reality. We have a wedding to plan, and I'm not going to let a little girl with a bunch of kids ruin everything. Madison called Ryan Mitchell, the actor she hired to pose as the children's father. The initial plan failed, but Madison was not one to give up easily. Ryan, I need you to do something else, she said. I need you to find a way to get rid of Emma Rodriguez completely. But what Madison didn't know was that Mason had installed tracking software on her phone since their first meeting. The genius boy was sitting in the hospital waiting room, listening to every word of the conversation through a small earpiece. Sophia, Mason whispered to his sister, We have a problem. What is it? Sophia asked, not stopping her. Work on the equation. The evil woman is planning to harm Mama. Sophia stopped and looked at her brother with a serious gaze. We have to protect Mama. Yes, Mason nodded. And I know what to do. Meanwhile, at the Cross Technologies office, Catherine Cross is having a private meeting with her family law team. She has been investigating Emma's background and has discovered something surprising. Miss Cross, the attorney said, presenting a thick file. Emma Rodriguez is more than just an ordinary assistant. She is the missing heiress of the Rodriguez family. Catherine narrowed her eyes. Which Rodriguez family? Rodriguez Pharmaceuticals. Her family owns a $2 billion pharmaceutical company. She is the only daughter of Miguel Rodriguez, but has been missing since she was a child after the plane crash that killed her parents. Catherine felt the world revolve around her. Emma was not the poor girl she thought she was. She was an heiress worth billions of dollars, but had chosen to live a modest life to raise 5 children. Find out more, Catherine ordered. I want to know everything about Emma Rodriguez. The next day, when Hero was awake and well, enough to talk, he told Ethan about the accident. Papa, Hero said weakly, it wasn't an accident. He hit me on purpose. Emma sat beside the bed, holding her son's hand. Are you sure? I'm sure, Mama. He looked me straight in the eye before he drove up. And he said something about making that woman regret it? Ethan felt his blood run cold. Someone had deliberately harmed Hero to get revenge on Emma, and he had a pretty good feeling about who was behind it. Mason, Ethan called to the boy, can you find out who hired the driver? Mason smiled with a dangerous glint in his eye. Papa, I did. And I think you'll be interested in what I find. Mason pulled out his tablet and showed Ethan a series of text messages and bank transactions. Madison Parker paid Ryan Mitchell $100,000 to hire a driver. She wanted to scare Mama so much she would leave town. Ethan looked at the evidence, feeling his anger rise like a volcano about to explode. Madison hadn't just tried to destroy his relationship with Emma and the kids. She had tried to kill an 8-year-old. Assistant Joe, Ethan called immediately. Call the police. I want Madison Parker arrested today. But Madison was prepared for this scenario. When the police arrived at her home, she was gone, along with Ryan Mitchell and all the evidence of their crime. Or so she thought. What Madison didn't know was that the kids weren't just collecting evidence of the accident. They were uncovering a much larger conspiracy. Papa, Sophia said, pointing to her computer screen. Parker Pharmaceuticals stole Cross Technologies' AI research. What? Ethan looked at the screen, seeing lines of source code and research documents. Madison has had access to Papa's systems for the past 6 months, Lucas explained. She copied everything about Cross Technologies' new AI project and passed it on to her family's company. Zoe nodded. And I found her emails with investors in China. She sold them the information for $500 million. Emma looked at the children in amazement. How do you know these things? We've been watching her for a long time, Mama, Mason explained. We didn't trust her from the first time we met her. She had the same look in her eyes as the bullies. At school, Ethan was proud of the kids' intelligence, but also worried about the sophistication of the plot. Madison wasn't just trying to ruin his personal life. She was trying to destroy his company. We need to report it to the FBI, Ethan said. It's done, Papa, Sophia smiled. We sent all the evidence to Detective Brooks this morning. She said they'll have a warrant for Madison's arrest within 24 hours. Detective Jennifer Brooks had been investigating Madison for months on other fraud charges, and the evidence from the children was the last piece she needed to build her case. That afternoon, Madison Parker and Ryan Mitchell were arrested at JFK Airport as they attempted to board a flight to Switzerland. In their luggage, police found $2 million in cash and a USB drive filled with information stolen from Cross Technologies. When the news broke, Cross Technologies shares soared. Investors were impressed not only with the company's technology, but also at the way Ethan handled the crisis and protected his family. Madison Parker's trial took place 3 months later, and it was one of the most closely watched cases in Manhattan court history, not only because of the seriousness of the charges, but also because of the most extraordinary witnesses anyone had ever seen. "Your Honor," Mason said into the microphone, his voice clear and confident, "we have been gathering evidence of the defendant's crimes for 8 months. The judge looked at the 10-year-old boy standing on the witness stand with surprise. "Can you explain how you gathered this evidence?" "Yes, sir," Mason replied. "I used legal digital surveillance techniques, analyzed electronic communications data, and monitored financial activity through public sources." Madison's attorney stood up. "Your Honor, this is just a child. How can you trust the testimony of a 10-year-old on complex technical matters?" That's when Sophia stepped up to the witness stand with a stack of documents so thick it took 2 people to carry. "Sir," Sophia said, pushing her glasses up higher, "this is a detailed mathematical analysis of the defendant's financial transactions, including statistical modeling demonstrating unusual frequency of communications with foreign partners and a May pattern of money transfers consistent with industrial espionage." The judge looked over the document, eyes wide with amazement. "You did all this analysis yourself?" "Yes, sir. I use advanced statistical analysis software and probability prediction models. The results show that the probability of the defendant being innocent is only 0.03%. The entire courtroom fell silent. Even Madison's attorney was at a loss for words when faced with a 9-year-old who could perform forensic financial analysis at a professional level. Lucas was next to take the witness stand, presenting Madison's overall strategy with the precision of a CIA analyst. The defendant executed a 3-phase plan. Lucas explained with the confidence of an adult. Phase 1, infiltrate Cross. Technologies through his personal relationship with Mr. Cross. Phase 2, access and copy proprietary information. Phase 3, sabotage Mr. Cross's reputation to reduce the value of the company before the stolen information was made public. Zoe ends up translating emails and messages Madison sent in Mandarin and Russian, proving she worked with international criminal groups. "Your Honor," Zoe said, switching smoothly between English and Mandarin. "The defendant used language codes to conceal his illegal activities, but I can prove the true meaning of each message." At the end of the trial, Madison Parker was sentenced to 25 years in prison for industrial espionage, attempted murder, and money laundering. Ryan Mitchell cooperated with the authorities and received a reduced sentence of 5 years in prison. But the story doesn't end there. During her investigation, Catherine Cross continued to dig into Emma's past and discovered a surprising truth. "Emma, honey," Catherine said when she and Ethan visited Emma and the kids at their small Brooklyn apartment, "I need to talk to you about your real family." Emma looked at Catherine with surprise. "What do you mean, ma'am?" Catherine handed Emma a file. "You are not Emma Rodriguez, the poor assistant. You are Emma Rodriguez, the sole heiress of Rodriguez Pharmaceuticals." Emma flipped through the pages of the documents, finding pictures of her parents that she hadn't seen in over 20 years. "My parents died in a plane crash when I was 5, Catherine continued. "I was supposed to die with them, but I was rescued and taken to an orphanage under a new identity to protect me from the people who killed my parents." Emma felt her limbs tremble. "That means you are one of the richest women in America," Robert Cross said, entering the small living room. "But more importantly, you chose to live as a normal mother to protect your children. That shows your true character." Ethan looked at Emma with new eyes. She was not just a woman he loved and the mother of his children. She was a woman who gave up billions of dollars to raise 5 genius children with love and sacrifice. "Emma," Ethan said, dropping to one knee in the middle of the living room, "I don't need you to be an heiress. I love you because you are the bravest, smartest, most loving woman I have ever met. Will you marry me?" 5 children stood around them, eyes shining with excitement. "Say yes, Mama," Zoe urged. Papa bought a beautiful ring, Mason said, pointing to the small box in Ethan's hand. And we did the math. He's the perfect choice for Mama, Sophia added. Plus, we want a real family, Lucas said with adorable sincerity. Papa promised he would never separate us, Hero said, still weak from the accident but strong enough to smile. Emma looked into Ethan's eyes, seeing in them not only love for her, but love for all the children. Yes, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. I want to marry you. Ethan and Emma's wedding took place 6 months later, and it was completely different from what Madison had planned. Instead of a lavish wedding in the Hamptons with hundreds of VIPs, they had a simple ceremony in Central Park with close family and friends. The 5 children played important roles in the wedding. Mason was the ring bearer, flying the rings to Ethan and Emma using a small drone he programmed himself. Sophia was the little bride, scattering flowers in a perfect mathematical pattern. Lucas was the usher, confidently leading the wedding procession. Zoe read her wedding vows in 5 different languages. And Hero, though still recovering, insisted on taking photos of the ceremony. You know the best thing about this story? Emma told the audience during her speech. It's not that I found the man of my dreams. It's that these kids found the fathers they deserved. Ethan cried when Emma said those words. He never thought he could be so happy. Not just because he had Emma, but because he had a real family, 5 wonderful children who he loved like his own. After the wedding, they had an important conversation about the future. I want to keep working, Emma said as they sat in their newly renovated penthouse apartment to accommodate a family of 5. I don't want to just be the wife of a billionaire CEO. I want you to work, Ethan replied. Actually, I have a proposal. How about you become the Chief Strategy Officer of Cross Technologies? The company needs someone who understands both technology and people. You're the perfect fit. Emma smiled. And the kids? The kids will do what they always do, Ethan laughed. They will outdo everyone and make us proud. And that's exactly what happened. Mason became the youngest cybersecurity consultant in Cross Technology's history, helping the company build an impenetrable security system. Sophia designed a financial optimization algorithm that saved the company $100 million in its first year. Lucas developed an international business strategy that took Cross Technologies into 15 new markets. Zoe became a cultural ambassador for the company, helping to build relationships with international partners through her incredible language skills. And Hero, after fully recovering, founded a martial arts training program for children to teach them how to protect themselves. Emma also founded the Rodriguez Foundation, a nonprofit organization for gifted orphans. Using her family's inheritance, she has created educational opportunities for thousands of children nationwide. You know what's crazy about life? Sometimes the people who seem like they have everything figured out are actually the ones holding the biggest secrets. That's exactly what happened when we found out the truth about Emma Rodriguez. And trust me, this revelation changed everything. So here we were, 3 months after Madison's arrest, thinking we finally understood the whole story. Ethan had his kids, Emma had her billionaire, and everyone was living happily ever after, right? Wrong, because that's when Detective Brooks showed up at Cross Technologies with news that made everyone's jaw drop. Mr. Cross, Detective Brooks said, sitting across from Ethan and Emma in his office. We've been investigating Madison Parker's financial records, and we discovered something interesting about Ms. Rodriguez here. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She'd been dreading this moment for weeks, knowing that a thorough investigation would eventually uncover her real identity. Emma Rodriguez isn't just any executive assistant, Detective Brooks continued, pulling out a thick file. She's the missing heiress to Rodriguez Pharmaceuticals. We're talking about a $2 billion fortune that's been sitting in trust funds for over 20 years. Ethan stared at Emma like he was seeing her for the first time. $2 billion? I know what you're thinking, Emma said quickly. Why didn't I tell you? Why did I let you think I was struggling financially all these years? Actually, Ethan said slowly, I'm thinking about how you chose to raise 5 kids in a tiny apartment when you could have been living in mansions. I'm thinking about how you worked as my assistant for 3 years when you could have bought and sold my company twice over. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I didn't want the money to change how people saw me or how they saw the kids. I wanted us to be loved for who we are, not what we're worth. But that wasn't even the biggest shock of the day. There's more, Detective Brooks said. We also discovered that Madison Parker's company has been systematically stealing research from Cross Technologies for over a year. She wasn't just trying to break up your relationship. She was conducting industrial espionage on a massive scale. Mason, who had been quietly listening from the corner where he was supposed to be doing homework, suddenly perked up. Detective! Brooks, we already knew about that. Excuse me? Detective Brooks looked confused. Sophia joined her brother, pulling out her tablet. We've been tracking Madison's illegal activities for 8 months. We have complete records of every file she accessed, every communication with foreign contacts, and every financial transaction. Lucas nodded sagely. We also identified her co-conspirators in 3 different countries and calculated the total economic damage at approximately $500 million. Zoe added cheerfully, and we recorded all her phone calls where she admitted to hiring the man who hit Hero with his car. Detective Brooks stared at the 4 children like they were aliens. You kids conducted your own investigation? We're very thorough, Mason said proudly. Want to see our evidence files? We organized everything by date, crime type, and legal relevance. Emma buried her face in her hands. I'm raising a family of junior FBI agents. The good news, Detective, Brooks said, still looking stunned, is that with this evidence, we can add federal charges against Madison. She's looking at life in prison now. What about Ryan Mitchell? Ethan asked. He's cooperating fully. Turns out Madison threatened his family to force his participation. He'll get a reduced sentence in exchange for his testimony. That evening, Ethan and Emma sat on the couch in their newly expanded penthouse, watching their 5 genius children work on various projects around the living room. Mason was debugging security software for a Fortune 500 company. Sophia was solving mathematical proofs for fun. Lucas was reading 3 different strategy books simultaneously. Zoe was practicing her 9th language. And Hero was designing a martial arts training program for kids. Emma, Ethan said quietly, about the money ... I don't want it to change anything, Emma said quickly. I mean, I know it will change things. Practically, but I don't want it to change us. It won't change us, Ethan assured her. But it could change a lot of other people's lives. Think about what we could do with that kind of resources. Emma smiled. I've actually been thinking about that. What if we started a foundation for gifted children who don't have families? Kids like Mason and Sophia were kids like Hero Lucas, and Zoe were at the orphanage. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say, Ethan grinned. Because I've been working on some ideas too. 3 weeks later, they announced the Rodriguez Cross Foundation for Gifted Youth. The foundation would provide full scholarships, family placement services, and educational support for intellectually gifted children from disadvantaged backgrounds. But the real celebration came 6 months later. At their wedding, they decided on a simple ceremony in Central Park with just family and close friends. No media circus, no society photographers, just the people who mattered most. You know, Emma said as she walked down the aisle with all 5 children escorting her, this is nothing like the wedding I imagined when I was a little girl. Better or worse? Ethan asked when she reached him at the altar. So much better. Emma laughed. I never imagined I'd have 5 brilliant kids walking me down the aisle, or that I'd be marrying someone who loves them as much as I do. The ceremony was officiated by Judge Martinez, the same judge who had presided over Madison's trial. He'd become something of a family friend after being thoroughly impressed by the children's courtroom testimony. Do you, Ethan Cross, take Emma Rodriguez to be your wife, and do you promise to love and protect not just her, but the 5 extraordinary children she has raised? I do, Ethan said, looking at Emma and then at each of the kids. And I promise to give them the family they've always deserved. Do you, Emma Rodriguez, take Ethan Cross to be your husband, and do you promise to build with him a family based on love, intelligence, and mutual respect? I do, Emma said, tears streaming down her face. And I promise to trust him with the most precious things in my life, these 5 amazing kids. When Judge Martinez pronounced them husband and wife, the children cheered louder than any wedding. Yes, in Central Park history. Ladies and gentlemen, Mason announced to the small crowd, we'd like to present our new family, the Cross family. Population, 7, Sophia added with mathematical precision. Estimated happiness level, 97.8%, Lucas calculated. Why only 97.8%? Zoe asked in 3 different languages. Because, Hero grinned, we're saving 2.2% for room to grow even happier. The new beginning 1 year later, Cross Technologies had become the most innovative company in Silicon Valley. Largely thanks to their unique approach to problem solving, they consulted with their junior advisory board of 5 kids aged 9 to 11. Emma had stepped into her role as Chief Strategy Officer like she was born for it, revolutionizing how the company approached everything from product development to international expansion. The Rodriguez Cross Foundation had placed over 200 gifted children in loving families and provided scholarships to more than 1,000 kids worldwide. And the Cross family. They were living in a house that finally felt like a home. Papa, Sophia said one evening as the family sat around the dinner table, I calculated something interesting today. What's that, sweetheart? Ethan asked. Before you and Mama got married, the statistical probability of our family being this happy was only 12.3%. But now that we're officially a family, the probability has increased to 99.7%. What happened to the other 0.3%? Emma asked. Mason grinned. That's reserved for the possibility that our family might get even more awesome. How could we possibly get more awesome? Hero wondered. Zoe raised her hand excitedly. What if Mama and Papa had another baby? Then we'd have 6 kids instead of 5. Emma and Ethan looked at each other across the table, both thinking the same thing. With their luck, they'd probably end up with another genius. We'll see, Emma laughed. But for now, I think 5 brilliant children are plenty. Actually, Lucas said with his strategic thinking face on, I've been analyzing optimal family sizes, and 7 total members will provide the best balance of individual attention and group dynamics. Plus, Mason added, if we had a baby, we could teach them everything we know. Imagine how smart they'd be with 5 older siblings helping. Ethan reached over and took Emma's hand. What do you think, Mrs. Cross? Emma looked around the table at their 5 incredible children. Mason with his protective instincts and technological genius, Sophia with her mathematical mind and gentle heart, Lucas with his strategic thinking and old soul wisdom, Zoe with her linguistic talents and infectious joy, and Hero with his martial arts skills and brave spirit. I think, Emma said, that whatever happens, we'll figure it out together. That's what families do. And you know what? They were right. Because 6 months later, when Emma announced she was pregnant with twins, the 5 kids immediately started planning how to optimize nursery design, calculate feeding schedules, and develop age-appropriate educational programs for babies. Some things never change. But the best part of this whole crazy story? It started with 4 kids crashing a Wall Street announcement because they wanted to meet their dad. And it ended with a family that proves love doesn't depend on genetics. It depends on showing up for each other every single day. Cross Technologies went public 6 months after the wedding with the most successful IPO in tech history. But if you asked Ethan what his greatest achievement was, you wouldn't mention the billions of dollars or the revolutionary technology. He'd tell you about the night Mason called him Papa for the first time, or the day Sophia solved a mathematical theorem that had been puzzling MIT professors for years, or when Lucas beat a chess grandmaster at age 9, or the moment Zoe gave her first speech at the United Nations in 6 different languages, or when Hero earned his black belt and dedicated it to the best family ever. Because here's what I learned from this whole incredible story. Money doesn't make a family, and genetics don't either. What makes a family is choosing to love unconditionally, protect fiercely, and show up consistently, even when life throws you curveballs like genius kids hacking into the New York Stock Exchange. And sometimes, if you're really lucky, you get a family that's so amazing, it feels like someone made it up just for you.